Hey, if the store's willing to do half the work, why not take them up on that offer? Guten gardening, everybody! In one of our videos in this series, I showed you a bucket very similar to this one and all these behind me that we got for free. And I'm going to talk to you today about how we got them and how we're going to use them this year, and probably most importantly, how we're going to let the stores do some of the gardening work for us. Now, also in this video, we're going to show you who our third winner is in our 31 days of Guten gardening gift giving. So stay tuned for that. And if you'd like to be entered in to win one of our 31 giveaways, then all you have to do is leave a comment on this video. So if you like this content, go ahead and give us a like and leave us a comment. Let's go ahead and start talking about these buckets and some potatoes. First, let me say this. If you can get free food-safe containers for whatever it is that you're trying to grow, you're already a step ahead of the game. And when we add to that the fact that sometimes the stores will do some of the work for us, well, that's even better. And when I talk about the stores doing some of the work for us, this is what I'm talking about. Because a couple of weeks ago, we went to the store and we noticed that there were some potatoes at a pretty deep discount. And these potatoes are not organic potatoes, but when we looked closely at the bags, what we noticed were that some of them had some chitting already happening. So they were already sprouting. And of course, the store is not going to want to sell those because they're not really great for eating. They're older potatoes that I guess people just hadn't bought. But you know what they are good for? They're good for planting, because if they're already chitting, we're going to get some development from these and we should get some production. And to be perfectly clear, this is not our first time buying potatoes from the store, old potatoes that were already chitting and planting them. Our third generation now, fingerling potatoes, came originally from some old store-bought potatoes. So we know that we can get success in growing from them. And I'll say something else that's really nice about these store-bought potatoes. You know, we prefer to get organic potatoes. These aren't. But if you don't have any potatoes from a previous crop, or, you know, it's this time of year, we're in December now, and there's nowhere that I'm going to find seed potatoes, especially in our area at this time of year. So this is a good way to get a hold of some if you want to try growing indoors. Now, this whole video is there to show you what we're doing as this experiment goes forward, but also to encourage you to try this out as well. We'd love to have you join us in growing these potatoes. Oh, by the way, these potatoes that I got for $1.99, and we picked up a couple of bags of these from the store because, hey, they're pretty inexpensive for seed potatoes, and I'm going to show you what they look like now here in a minute. But those aren't the only ones that we got, because a couple of days later, I was standing at the gas station, and right above the pump, there was an advertisement for 99 cents for 5 pounds of russet potatoes. So I went in and I grabbed 5 pounds. I mean, 99 cents. I don't know if they're going to sprout or not. Again, they're not organic, but let's see. Well, now a couple of weeks later, and here's an example of one of the russets that we have. You see those sprouts on there, that chitting? Well, there you go. So we spent maybe $5 total on the seed potatoes that I'm going to show you how to plant. But before I show you how we're going to plant them, I got to show you these buckets and talk a little bit about how we got them, because I have a whole bunch of buckets in here now. In fact, I got about 10 of them, and most of them came from the same store where we got those initial red potatoes at a discounted price. It turns out if you stop by the bakery in your local store, I mean, they ice a lot of cakes. And so if they're sitting there icing a lot of desserts, in all likelihood, they have some pretty nice sized buckets that they keep that icing in, and they usually just recycle them when they're empty. So all we've had to do is go in and say, could we please have any buckets you might have that you're going to recycle?
Hi there. You wouldn't happen to have any of those buckets that you recycle that have icing or anything like that, would you?
And usually we get 1 or 2 buckets at a time. In one case, one of the ladies said, come back on Friday and I'll have a couple of buckets saved for you. And she wrote, save the bucket on here and on the side. She wrote it everywhere. She wanted to make sure this bucket was saved for me. Now, how do I know that this is a good quality food safe bucket? Well, a good tell for that is that if there was food stored in it originally, it's probably food safe. But on top of that, if you look at the bottom of these buckets, they'll typically have a number underneath that'll tell you what kind of plastic they are. This is a number 2 HDPE. That stands for high density polyethylene plastic, which is considered to be a food grade plastic. So these buckets are going to be great to grow in for us. Now, one thing you might run into, these are not 5-gallon buckets. In fact, this is a 4¼ gallon bucket, and one of the other ones they gave us was 3½ gallons. So most of them are one of those two sizes, but they're still big enough for us to grow potatoes in. So now not only do I have the deeply discounted potatoes that the store chitted for me, or at least it got it started. I mean, these are now a good 1/2 inch. Again, I'll show you that in a second. But I also have free containers to grow them in. Hey, we'd love to hear your experience. If you go to your local grocery store, go to the bakery and ask them if they have any buckets that they're going to recycle. We'd love to know how it works out for you. Not every place has been forthcoming with their buckets, but again, it wasn't hard for us to accumulate about 10 of these. So give it a try. That's free buckets. And then the other piece is you can be looking for these potatoes to go on sale. Look for them to have chitted a little bit. And then you've got 2/3 of what you need to go ahead and get this planted. So I'm gonna show you how we're gonna plant these in the bucket right now so you can join along with us. Now you can just watch this process develop over this growing season, but again, we'd love for you to take part in this. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. We're gonna interrupt our video briefly to tell you who our third winner is of our 31 days of Guten garden giveaways.
All right, folks, there are more and more of you registered all the time for our giveaways. This is our third giveaway. If you want to be registered for the next one, make sure you leave a comment on this video, or make sure you leave a comment on one of our posts either today or before the next video comes out. And that'll get you registered for the next giveaway in our 31 days of Guten gardening gift giveaways. So let's see what we're giving away today. This may be my favorite giveaway so far. We've got a 8.5 by 11 Right in the Rain weatherproof spiral notebook. Now check this out. You can write your gardening notes, your gardening journal in the rain without worrying about anything getting ruined. Isn't that the coolest notebook? You got a lot of high humidity? You don't have to worry about that one bit. All right, let's go ahead and find out who the winner of today's giveaway is. And our winner is Melissa Royer. Congratulations, Melissa Royer. Hey, listen, in the comments, say congratulations to the winner, but don't say her name. That way she can be completely surprised when she sees this video.
All right, I'm starting with this bucket. It's a 4.5 gallon bucket, and the reason I'm starting with this one is we've already cleaned it out. Now, the icing in here is not that hard to wash out. Just some warm water will take care of it. This is 4.5 gallons. Maybe a little bit bigger than some of the other ones, but the principle is basically going to be the same. One thing we want in here is some good drainage. We want to make sure that we give it plenty of drainage, so I'm just going to drill some holes in the base here. I'm going to put 4 or 5 in here. You get the picture. We just want to put some nice holes in the bottom so when we water this, the water can pull through it and not soak up into our potatoes. This is the last thing we want is wet feet on our potatoes. So next thing we need is some kind of catch tray for these. So this is one of our trays. One of the things that's nice about this tray, and we have other ones that are a little bit different, but it's got a little spot here that's about a 1/2 inch raised. And so when I put the potatoes in here, any water that drains out won't go right back up and sit in here as long as we don't overwater. I would say you could do the same thing with any other saucer, really, if you put a brick in here, something to keep it elevated a little bit so that any water that drains through isn't going to pool. That's the key. Now I went through and pulled out any of the plastic shavings that might have been in here, and I'm ready to add my mix. And here's the mix I'm going to be putting in here. This is actually a mix that we make made out of coco coir, peat moss, some potting mix that we got that was pre-bagged, but not a lot of that, and our worm castings, vermiculite, perlite. Anyway, it's a really nice loose mix. It's well draining. Now I'm going to add about 4 inches of mix here at the base, just a little bit more than that. And this is the level at which we're going to plant our seed potatoes. Now take a look at this. We've got a good 1/2 inch of chitting here. Really nice, strong sprout on this side. These are petite red potatoes, which just means that they're basically early potatoes, young potatoes, if you want to call them that. They were harvested early. But there's a really nice, like that's a nice sprout coming off of here. Now different people have different methods when it comes to fertilizing, when they fertilize, what that looks like. But I'm going to show you what we do when we plant our potatoes so you can see this is something that's worked for us. And so we stick with it. So here's what we're gonna do. Now, these go right on top of this 4 inches of mix. And I'm gonna be adding a good bit more mix right on top of that as well. But before I put these in here, we always add bone meal right by where we're planting. So you can see the spots where these are gonna go. I add some bone meal down here that really helps with root crops and root development. And then some mycorrhizal right where we're planting this, again, to really encourage that root growth, root development, and that intake of nutrients. And on top of that, we always add a little bit of our all-purpose fertilizer. Now I'm only adding a little bit in here because we're gonna add more at the top. So as it's watered, it'll kind of water down. And I'm gonna give that a little bit of a mix so we're not sitting right on top of it, but just something like that right there. And then our seed potatoes are gonna go right on top. And I'm gonna pick this one as our second one because it's got a couple of nice sprouts, and I want those sprouts facing up. And so then our next step is just to add another 6 inches of potting mix on top of this. And we're adding that potting mix on top because that's where these sprouts are going to start to develop, right up through that mix. Now this is a smaller bucket, it's not a 5 gallon, so 12 inches is right here. 10 inches is where we would have our 4 plus 6. I'm gonna go to 9 inches because once the greens shoot through, once we start to see our potato greens coming through, our sprouts coming through, then we're going to be able to hill it up a little bit more, and we'll still have room to water this without the mix spilling out. So there you go. That's what the level is going to look like for this bucket. Now on the top, I'm going to give it some more of that all-purpose organic fertilizer and some more of that bone meal. I'm just going to layer it nicely, just like so. And that needs to be watered in, and we're all set. Now early on, we don't actually do a bunch of watering. This will be the only time. We just got to get a nice soak in here. But we don't do a whole bunch of watering early on because we don't want any rotting to occur since these seed potatoes don't have their roots yet. Now that's the first of several buckets that we're going to plant. These are just the petite reds. We got some of these russets to plant as well. You'll notice I didn't cut these in pieces. I'm just going to plant it the whole potato in there and see what it does. This is our first time growing in these buckets, but tell you what, planting them, we're planting them the same way we grow in any other kind of container. The difference is these are pretty inexpensive. Look, if you can go out there and find some free buckets, find some inexpensive potatoes and give it a try, we'd say, why not? Join us in our indoor growing season and let the store do a little bit of that chitting work for you. Well, congratulations again to our third winner out of 31. So keep coming back, keep commenting. If you want to be involved in the giveaways, definitely do that. We hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did enjoy today's video, don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, remember to share and subscribe, and most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.